Sometimes the worst endings are just the best. Considering the immense amount of satisfaction that comes from uncovering the absolute best endings in video games, there has to be the same appreciation for the ones that are just so inexplicably bad that they require just as much time and effort to uncover. For those of us who are determined enough, there lie dozens of hilarious, tragically awful, immoral, and downright dumb possible conclusions for us to gleefully unlock. If you actually manage to get any of these endings completely by accident, then you are truly a god among disaster pieces, and perhaps you scare me, and we probably shouldn't be friends. For this list, we will be looking at some of the more cruel, confusing, and sometimes silly examples of what gaming can offer us, not necessarily involving copious amounts of murder. Most of the time, it's actually the complete opposite. My name is Rach, and welcome back to WhatCulture Gaming. These are the 10 worst possible alternative video game endings. Also, spoilers, obviously we're talking about endings here, so be sure to check the timecodes in the description below. Number 10, Dark Souls 3, Betrayal. Dark Souls 3 has several possible endings. You can choose to usurp the fire entirely, embrace your hollowing curse, marry and then promptly murder your wife and take your place as the Hollow Lord. Although all this sounds pretty grim, it isn't actually the worst possible ending you can reap in Dark Souls 3. All throughout the game, Firelink Shrine's Firekeeper has been your light in the darkness. She is blind, but if you collect the eyes of a Firekeeper and gift her them, she fearfully explains that this means setting off on a path of betrayal together, to create a world without fire. She makes completely sure that this is what you want before the two of you meet once more after defeating the final boss. Obediently, the Firekeeper begins to take the first flame. As the fire is fading and the darkness creeps in, you can kill her! Unceremoniously, the chosen undead will stamp on her head and steal the flame from her dying grasp. It is unspeakably cruel and by far the worst way you could choose for your adventure's conclusion. Number 9, Luigi's Mansion, your new mansion. At the end of the game, after Luigi triumphs over King Boo and rescues Mario from his spooky plight, the haunted mansion is destroyed, and in its place, the extremely grateful Professor E. Gadd uses all the treasure that Luigi has collected throughout his ghost-busting adventures to rebuild it. In short, the more money you obtain during the game, the better your mansion at the end will be, with the housing standards declining as you go down the ranks. Of the 8 possible endings, by far the worst possible one is ending with a rank H, and the haunted mansion fades out to reveal a tiny tent pitched in the grass with a burnt out fire beside it. The best thing about this bad ending is how difficult it actually is to achieve, as you will have to deliberately avoid collecting any kind of money at all throughout the game, making this little tent possibly even harder to obtain than the best mansion. Number 8, Infamous Second Son, Evil Karma. The interesting thing for a game like this is that being bad feels so good. The more evil karma you earn for Delsin through murder and destruction, the more his elemental powers evolve and become more visually impressive. Giving in to bad karma all throughout the game results in an absolutely heartbreaking ending to it. After defeating Brooke Augustine and avenging the death of Reggie, Delsin and his pals take over Seattle. His plan to absorb Augustine's rock shard's abilities now complete, Delsin returns home to save his tribe from her magic. However, they have all been watching all this destruction and madness from the television, and now want nothing to do with him. Tribe Elder and Delsin's surrogate mother Betty confronts him, condemning him for his actions and disowning him entirely. Delsin, in a burst of emotional rage, explodes and presumably destroys the entire village, killing his whole tribe and family. One heck of an overreaction. Number 7, Braid, Explosive Love. The story, in its simplest state, is of a man, Tim, searching for a princess who has been snatched by a horrible and evil monster. Each world uses different aspects of time manipulation for its puzzles. Pausing time, changing its effects on Tim or on objects around him, rewinding time to undo mistakes. It is revealed in a brilliant end twist that in the final world, time is playing out in reverse. It turns out this whole time, instead of Tim running to the princess to save her, she was in fact running away from him. As if this normal ending wasn't devastating enough, there is a secret ending where, if the player takes their time, takes all the time, in fact, and collects all the hidden secret stars throughout the game, when you catch up to the princess, she explodes. Try not to think about it too hard. Braid's symbolism and metaphors are incredibly clever. All along, the princess actually represented the atomic bomb, and Tim, the scientist, obsessively pursuing it. Even if it is an unhealthy obsession, I don't think we actually wanted our precious princess to explode. Yikes. Number 6. Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. Giving up hope. During one of the class trials, it becomes exceedingly obvious that the mastermind behind the student's kidnapping has interfered with the murder, therefore making the investigation impossible to solve. As such, it begins to emerge that Kyoko, the calm and intelligent detective, looks to be the most likely suspect, but it is clear to us that she is being framed. Choosing to go against our instincts and loudly announce Kyoko's lie to the rest of the class will result in her execution. Completely devoid of enthusiasm after her death, no one attempts another escape, and they simply give up trying. Forever trapped inside the school, the students all resort to having children with the last remaining sane female, and no doubt are headed towards a future full of horrific interbreeding or extinction by abstinence. Doesn't sound great, does it? Nah, Makoto doesn't think so either. Number 5. House of the Dead. Zombie Fiancé. At the end of the game, after purging the mansion of all the nasty beasties within it, depending on your ending score, Sophie could be seen running towards you happily, alive and well. She could be missing, presumed dead, or she could approach you completely zombified. If players manage to finish with fewer than 62,000 points and have their score ending in a 0, then they'll get the worst possible ending and nab themselves a zombie bride. And for what? Pure nightmares when we were kids, that's what. Loved it. Number 4. Detroit Become Human. Abandonment. If Kara and young Alice are captured during their escape from the city, they are sent to an android concentration camp, where they are stripped and left with no choice but to await their inevitable execution. Throwing his weight around, one of the guards shoots one of the androids and orders Kara to drag the body out of the way. If Kara obeys, she leaves Alice in line to drag the body over to the dumping truck. While away from the main group, Kara sees her chance to escape. Both the game and your gut instincts tell you that you should go back to Alice, but there is the option to ignore both. Kara can hide in the back of the truck amidst the bodies and it will drive away with her on it. Alice is left sad, scared and alone at the camp and is destroyed, while Kara wakes up in the landfill, alive and free, but haunted by her selfish decisions. Number 3. Persona 4 Golden. Befriending the enemy. If you've ever enjoyed a bit of that bad boy fetish, you'll be very glad to hear that the PlayStation Vita version of Persona 4 Golden allows you to establish and nurture a social link relationship with Toru Adachi, a police detective and the game's ultimate antagonist. Should the player persist and become good enough friends with Adachi, we are given the option of protecting him and can choose not to reveal him as the prime suspect in the murder cases. Going one step further, we can even choose to side with him completely and destroy the threatening letter from Adachi that would have served as cold hard evidence of his guilt. Adachi laughs at us, ridiculing us. Not even the villain can believe the path we have chosen to tread. You will betray your friends, your own values, commit the crime of destroying evidence and take your place beside the villain as his partner in crime. I mean, if we're talking bad endings, go big or go home, am I right? Number 2. Shenmue. An actual ending. For the better part of the past 2 decades, Shenmue fans have been eagerly awaiting the outcome of Ryo's story of vengeance. It turns out there was a secret alternative ending in the first game that actually provided closure this whole time. If you somehow manage to make it months and months through the game without completing it, you will trigger Shenmue's bad ending. The game begins on the 29th of November 1986, and if Ryo stays in Yokosuka until the 15th of April 1987, then he will travel back to his family dojo to find the evil Lan Di beating up his friend Fukusan. Lan Di reveals that he knows of the second Phoenix Mirror in Ryo's possession and demands it. When Ryo refuses, the two prepare to fight, but Ryo is beaten instantly by the same move that Lan Di killed Ryo's father with. I didn't say it was good closure. In a way, at least it was somewhat of an ending to the story, which is more than we've gotten in the past 18 years. However, it was still pretty difficult to get, even more difficult than the usual to be continued canon ending. It basically required you to do absolutely nothing, neglect your quest for revenge, ignore your kidnapped girlfriend, and loaf around in the arcade for months. Doesn't actually sound too bad. Number 1, Harvest Moon, kicked off the farm. Now, I can sympathise with a bit of laziness. I've got a corner of my room where all my dirty clothes just kind of sit, and they'll stay there until I literally cannot access the bathroom before I'll tidy them away, despite my laundry basket being literally in the same room. Laziness never really hurt anyone, and it certainly never caused any game overs, right? In the original Harvest Moon, there is literally a bad ending that involves getting kicked off your farm entirely. All because of a little laziness. Well, okay, a little is an understatement. If you somehow manage to do absolutely nothing for an entire year, as in literally wake up in the morning and go straight to bed for a whole year straight, and harvest 0 crops or raise any animals, allowing your farm to deteriorate into such a hideous mess, then your mother and father will angrily boot you off the property. The worst part about this ending is that your dog tries to run after you, but gives up and just lays there sadly, whimpering behind you. Now that is the worst possible ending you could ever choose in the history of video games. And that's our list. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm actually really curious, did you get any of these endings? I got the Detroit one, but I was literally trying to get a bad ending. It was terrible. Once again, my name has been Rach. You can follow me on Twitter if you like at Don't Rage Quit. Have an awesome day, guys. We will see you tomorrow.